access to
created my own little algorithms to do one thing or another, like disease states, a mortality algorithm. And
I think you will have a whole levels of robotics, that humanoid robots or non-humanoid robots, whatever the case is.
But the one that I really gravitated towards was Alteryx. Low code, no code, business intelligence stuff, data science, machine learning, things like that.
Audio, the text, and then there's big metaverse buzz. Everybody knows the metaverse.
Another week of AI.
Yeah, I know Bobby got a whole lot to add to that.
Well, it's not just them. And when you say legacy, meaning old, that was some of the things that are old don't mean they were bad. We missed the fundamentals when it comes to this, right? So one of the companies that was greatly affected by the outage I used to work for back then.
Thank God for not saying that name, right?
Look, but I ain't got that kind of money to deal with no lawsuit. So what I will tell you is back then, our disaster recovery plan was different. Our disaster recovery plan was more robust. And money drives a lot of decisions, because back then, if we rolled out updates, when the update completed, it checked back in, and we knew how long it should take for it to check back in. And if it was out of tolerance, then we'd stop rolling out the updates. And we didn't push them out to everybody all at once. We had time windows. So at no point did the whole shebang go down. This was part technology, but part arrogance. Our stuff is so reliable, and we bought the Hashitashi 3000, and it'll never go down. Okay, but you missed the fundamentals of how do you make sure that the way you do things meets the common sense test, and it didn't, right? So once when I was a younger version of me, and I was cleaning my home, I was given a honeydew of get the grout clean, right? So I went and bought some stuff, and it had a flower on the bottle, and it said grout cleaner, and it said smells like potpourri. So I'm scrubbing this stuff, and I have on sweatpants, and the sweatpants are soaking up whatever this chemical is, but it was potpourri scented. All of a sudden, my legs and arms began to burn. Everything began to swell. Well, y'all, it was potpourri acid, potpourri scented acid. Took all the hair off my arms. The skin was burnt on my arms and legs, right? Number one, reading is fundamental. It didn't make sense for me to deploy this across my whole kitchen floor without even understanding what the risk was. And that's the realities, right? So it happens. The thing is, when you're talking about industry and this kind of money and this kind of time, sometime what's old is new again, and just taking your time as you implement new solutions. Don't get rid of the common sense factor things that would have kept your business in business. Everything comes down to the dollar. So that redundant network, we don't need it, right? Well, now you pay the cost for
it. I know Brian has a whole lot to say about that. So where do we go from here, Brian?
I mean, the main thing is to be educated. We have to be educated and have security awareness. Maybe ask yourself, well, where do I go? I mean, there's a lot of good, there's a lot of good things, a lot of good platforms you can join. But that's one of the things that we actually, with our group at Starks Technology Services, we're able to teach you not only the fundamentals, but we have a wealth of knowledge from, myself and others on the team. We have a lot, about 30 years worth of IT experience. So we will help you, guide you, kind of hold your hand and make sure that you're very equipped, whether it's security training or to get a certification. So that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on, is helping the people, helping our community, because the more that we can help educate our community, the more secure that we make this thing go. And I think that's just the main piece of it. So, even with smart community, AI community, It's building relationships with good people that we could share that knowledge and help you understand it and help take your career to the next level.
Masako, did that kind of answer what the CEOs need to know? Because the end users could be defined in so many ways, but end devices is something that they will really have to pay attention to, because at the end of the end device sits a person, and that person's inability to execute these security measures matters as much as the device itself, right? There's a whole lot of way to explain it, but if the end users doesn't care about data, end users are not going to protect the data. And everybody should care about the data to protect the data. And that's the whole story that CEOs need to understand, that CEOs care about data. But my job is to show them a picture of data in such a way that they see the value of data, right? So CEOs themselves don't even really know the value of their own data yet. That's why we have this community of practice, so that way you can come in and figure out the value of your data, how to look at your data differently, how to feel differently about your data, so you can protect that better. So I think that's the answer to that.
Yeah, there's a part two, because I heard y'all talked about the legacy system upgrades and not. So how would one prioritize their budget between AI tools, employee training, and legacy system upgrades? How would they do that?
I think the first step is, you have to understand what you have in your organization first off. You can, and I think Bobby alluded to it earlier, you got all these tools that are just so high qualified, but you can have the best tool in the world. But if you don't know what you have, as from a CEO's perspective, if you don't know what data that you have, where is it going, and what it's being used for, it doesn't matter. You can have the best solutions. You can have CrowdStrike. You can have all the best solutions in the world, but it starts with understanding what you have. Then once you understand what you have, then you have to do your research. You have to find something that's going to work for your environment. And I think a lot of companies really miss the mark by paying billions of dollars for tools that they don't even understand the tool itself. So then that's another piece of it. So again, it goes back to that education of understanding what you have. Once you understand what you have, then figure out what's going to be best for your environment. You don't need a CrowdStrike. If you're in a small or medium-sized business, you may not need CrowdStrike. You may not need Zscaler or some of these other tools. You may need something simple and small. So those are the steps that I definitely recommend that any company, take place, and then just go step by step. Make sure that your budget, one thing that Asif and I talked about is companies miss the mark so much because they invest the money in other places of the organization. And then by the time you get to IT, you only got a limited amount of budget because you focused that. And I think, Bobby, I see you shaking your head. I think you can attest to that as well. But understanding the basics, and we talked about it before, the basic foundations. Once you understand what you have, understand how many folks you have, and then just keep going on the list, until you figure out, okay, well, we know what we have. We know how many folks it's going to take. We know we don't need legacy tools or legacy devices. Now we're probably going to need to execute a certain type of budget because we need X, Y, Z.
Yeah, how many? Because I feel like people are sold these systems, but they're not trained on it. Their staff isn't trained on it. Who are the key members of the staff that need to be trained in cybersecurity? Because I feel like it should not be just one person. Security needs to be something that each individual that walks into that office plays a part in.
Yeah, if I think when we have so many things to consider layer by layer, it kind of goes back to the onions, right? Like, you peel all the onion layers. What are you securing actually? Why are you securing it? And what part of it do you want to let go if that's okay, right? So you have a system of penetration, right? So what we call penetration testing, we're penetrating enough to say, did I get to the core data, right? Did I get to that file or folder that you have unsecured? Now I'm able to access it, right? Security is like protecting a castle. You're always going to have somebody throwing dirt at you, right? If it's not a dirt that one time, they're going to throw a cannon at you, right? If it's not a cannon, they're going to bring thousands of people to attack you, right? So the castle theory, it works very well in understanding cybersecurity, because in the castle, if they break the wall, that's okay, because the most important part of the castle is in the middle of the castle somewhere, or dug under the ground, right? Or on the top of the minaret, wherever that is. So these kind of things is where CEOs have to very much know. But guess who's going to help you to execute on all this? It's the guy to your left and right. Do you have a left guy on your left and right who's going to be able to say, look, there's a vulnerability right there that I see it, but I'm not sure if I can speak that because I don't feel educated enough to speak on this topic. Have you, as a CEO or decision maker, enabled that person to say, speak up? We need to hear that, right? So a lot of the organizations that I've dealt with, you always see, as John V sent a message saying defense in depth. Gotta have those layers. Yeah, onions, right? Yeah. So you have these layers of protection. You think you're doing the right thing. Your vendor thinks you're doing the right thing, right? The people that you're buying the hardwares are going to tell you you're doing the right things, but it's the people that uses it on a daily basis is the one that's going to be able to give you that feedback. And a lot of the organization I deal with, a lot of these individuals do not speak up because they don't feel confident enough to speak on this topic. And how do I know that? Well, I'm in the coal mining section of IT. I'm a data digger. I work in a coal mine, right? Where we're just digging for data. We're on the database level. We don't see the sunshine for days, I would say, right? So I've dealt with this kind of, like I have all the knowledge. I just don't understand enough to be confident to tell somebody this is a security vulnerability, right? And if you ever dealt with data, data is all over the place, right? So when you have a vulnerability, to get into that data, it's not a hard work if you know what you're doing, right? So you have to have always this left and right conversation. And I think before you even get the hardware, before you even get the AI software or the subscription or the vendor to come and pitch you anything, look around you and see who's confident enough to tell you what they need to tell you. I'm a military guy. I've been trained to speak up. You see something, you do something, or whatever the case is. We always do something, right? But I've been in a situation where I knew I was talking the wrong thing without knowing the right information. And nobody said, Asif, that's a security vulnerability. We shouldn't do that.
Well, it's ironic that you said that. First off, on the comment about the basement, being in the coal mine, you're right, because I'm thinking, remember the building, brand new building, multi-million-dollar renovation, rather, and your team was in the basement. So it is true that you guys were literally in a coal mine. Iron mine, where we were at. It is imperative that in companies and organizations that we use groups of people that are diverse in their knowledge of the business, right? So let's say if you start in cybersecurity and you grow in that field and you say, I'm kind of tired of doing this. Well, I say what you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's a great growth opportunity. Imagine the strength of a person with a cybersecurity background who is now the business analyst, right? Or anywhere within the agile framework, right? Are you a conductor? What are you doing, right? Where you have what you want to do now is make sure that cybersecurity is baked into your products, baked into how you operate, baked into your DR. And the more people you have with that background, that if they decide to change direction or to enhance their skill set, what happens is in places that you never would have thought of, now cybersecurity best practices are in play, or threats that you would not have seen, no one maybe in your whole industry would have seen, someone does now see simply because they have the background. So don't be afraid to, on the teams that you work with, to bring in new people with various backgrounds and some developmental type seats, because you're growing the capability. So as we move forward with all these different AI tools, they're only going to be as good as the people who put them together, who evaluate what the tool is. I've seen so many vendors come in and says, this tool will change your life. Well, while everyone else is clapping, I'm like, what's next? Act now and I get to super chamois for free. I mean, it is just that kind of thing, right? So I'm that person that's like, I'll applaud when it works. So that's kind of how I am.
And kind of just for me to piggyback on what everybody just said, it really starts with everyone. I mean, you're talking from the receptionist at the front desk to every single employee. I think one of the latest stats is that maybe 85% of all breaches start with the email, right? A malicious email that comes into your organization. So it's imperative that, everyone in your organization is trained on cybersecurity practices. And Bobby just mentioned it too. It starts with, when you're designing, all of these cybersecurity procedures and awareness has to be baked in from the very beginning. And everybody plays a part, even the janitor. Like something as simple as you got hackers they're really looking for the weakest link, really. So these bad actors could plan a USB drive that has malicious code on it, and someone happens to just pick it up. And human nature is we're always curious. I wonder what's on this USB drive. You plug it in and there you go, your systems has been breached. So to answer your question, I think it's every single employee in the organization has to be versed on cybersecurity, have to be aware, and not only aware, but they have to practice it. And I think Steve said it best, like if you see something, say something.
That's right. So that's a long-winded. I know Brian got to jump off, but we have the other part of Starks now, Starks Technology Services. So when you have experience like Starks Technology, we bring in a perspective that says, look, somebody has to give a fresh eyes to it, right? It's like a full picture. You're seeing the picture, but you're only looking at Mona Lisa for some reason, because that's the piece that everybody wants, Mona Lisa. But behind the scene, there's a whole lot of things happening. Even within the picture, you might have some pixels that are missing, right? We are those guys that come in and say, like, I'm not looking at Mona Lisa because I don't value Mona Lisa that way, right? I don't care about your organization as much as you care about it. That's your baby, right? We have to come and kind of look at it from the side angle, like, okay, the things that are working okay, just fine. And we bring the best practice from the whole industry, right? And whole industry being IT technology, data, any industry that you can think of, cybersecurity industry. So we bring the best practice, right? Every organization can do their own best practice, but every organization is not capable of auditing their own best practice, right? So you have to have that auditor mentality. So like say, you see something, do something. Well, you have to have the auditor mentality because now you know what people are looking for next to Mona Lisa, right? If you see a frame and you look at the frame, you say like, well, the paint is missing. It's a fake one, right? Or whatever. I'm just trying to use the analogy here of Mona Lisa. But the thing is, you have to see the best practice from within, right? You don't want an auditor to come in and say like, yeah, that Mona Lisa is half of the picture is missing. You guys didn't even know that, right? So you have to have an auditor mentality. And I want to put that out because when you train the people to get communication, right? The communication going. You explore your business process. And you explore your business process, now you're thinking, now my employees will help me secure it. If they understand your business process, they understand their daily task, and now they understand cybersecurity. Now they understand what the value of Mona Lisa is. A lot of people look at their own data. They don't even know what they're looking at because they don't see the aggregation of that data. So a lot of the end users always have this thing like, I'm just working with this boring 2, 3, 4 Excel sheets all day long. How does that matter? Well, it matters a lot when you put all the data together, right? So when you are talking about what to prioritize that. Tell everybody what the Mona Lisa is. Show them the value of Mona Lisa, because not everybody knows what a Mona Lisa is, how much that cost outside of this building, right? So this kind of conversation, I think, is very important. And I would say check your left and right, and that's where your answer is, right? But we'll leave it at that for now.
That was excellent information, guys. Just listening to each of your responses. If I were multiple people, I'd be like, oh, that's where I fit in the company. Oh, that's where I fit in the company. And that's why I wanted each of your perspectives, because I want each individual watching and listening to this to see where they fit.
Yeah.
Oftentimes people feel like they don't fit. Oh, that doesn't have anything to do with me. Oh, I don't do. There's a place for everyone. Build your table. We built the table. We built the table. So there is a seat at the table for you. And so that was the whole premise for that question. I wanted people to see that there's space for them. Thank you.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of what you said, the people, process, and technology, right? As a consultant, we pounce on that idea over and over. People, process, and technology. Don't focus on technology. Focus on your people. Because if you don't have the right type of people, you don't have the right process to engage with that technology, to develop that technology, to deploy that technology, maintain that technology. Whatever process you are worried about, business process optimization is as good as the people that I leave behind after I'm done consulting, right? Because at the end of the day, they're there, right? It's their Mona Lisa. They have to take care of it, right? So if there's a process that you cannot protect the technology, you cannot engage with the technology correctly, you have to look at the people. So people, process, and technology. Process comes in the middle, right? And one of the things that we talked about here is that AI, right? This process is where AI fits. AI is not a technology. Let me say that again. AI is not a technology. AI is a process. People will engage in this process using AI to improve this process, to do this process better, to deliver something in technology that may or may not have AI, or just a bunch of whatever, right? Whatever your business is delivering, it doesn't necessarily have to be AI, but the process is going to be of AI, right? So that Mona Lisa that you're looking at, how do you value that Mona Lisa to say, this data is so valuable, the process that we have, this data is augmenting that, right? Because when you think about people, we think about like rigid manual work. But when you think about people now, start thinking about people as the one that's handling those data. All of a sudden, your process shifts, right? Your process shifts from, these are just data that everybody's kind of clicking on all day long. No. That's not what you're giving them. That's what they're handling. So when you think about people in the process, people are handling those data, and data is the process. Now with AI, we're going to process this data far more superior, far more with zero latency, with more intelligence, because this data is going to augment us. This data is going to tell us stories now, right? So whatever that is being delivered through that process, you really have to start thinking about AI in that process. How do you take that data that we have, the Mona Lisa we have, we don't just stare at it, we use it. Use it, guys. You have data, use those data, because that data is feeding into your process. So I think I'm going to stop here, but I'll let you guys pick up, because this is something that I want people to understand, that people are more valuable in the process, because without these people, process doesn't work.
Agreed.
Bobby, you got any thoughts on that?
No, I agree that people are definitely more important than the process, except Ken from HR. I can't stand it. So
especially that one.
That one there. No, really, people understanding the WIFM, right? What's in it for me, right? What's the value add? What role? Not just the role, but how is it that what they do affects the company. Or, so basically, from a military perspective, it is important that everyone down to the lowest enlisted soldier understand their role on the battlefield, right? Without enlisted soldiers, vehicles don't run, people don't eat, right? All of these things happen. And once they know it, they change the perspective of everything's dumped on me, transforms into these things are dependent upon me. And once they get that, it transforms the battle space, right? Because from the fundamental level all the way up, everyone understands their duties, responsibilities, why it's important, and why is it important that they do it to the best of their ability. We need to do the same thing in our businesses. We need to do the same thing in our homes, right? Everybody has a role. You don't want to take out the garbage, but without you taking out this garbage, our family isn't safe from disease and stench of trash, et cetera, et cetera, right? It's not just do it and I'll give you allowance. No, you have a role in this family, and we appreciate the role that you serve in this family. You do that, and you keep us safe, et cetera, et cetera. Watch and see how young people transform, how those same chores are viewed differently, right? So it is important that we all know who we are, and whether it's business, social interactions, or in your personal life, as humans, regardless of the technology in play, we all want to be seen.
Yeah, and I think that answered Grace's question about how do we view that as part of the onboarding training. When you're onboarding somebody, that's what you have to kind of articulate to them, that we have this thing called Mona Lisa, and we all love her and protect her, but we make sure we use that Mona Lisa accordingly, properly, and we guard it as such, right? So this is a mindset shifting, because we can talk about threats all day long, right? And nobody's going to attack you unless there's the people behind it. And nobody's going to defend anything unless there's the people to defend it, right? So we'll just leave it at that. Dwayne, what do you think?
Well, I agree with you 100%. Like I said earlier, like it's like a collective, and I think even with onboarding, if you make that person feel like they play a part, is going to change their mindset. I've been in some organizations where, I felt like I was just a body, like I was unappreciated, and I didn't really understand my role, and it does affect how you do your day-to-day interactions with other people, how you put effort into work that you do. So I think that's very, very important. You guys all hit it right on the head. It starts from the beginning. We got this big picture, this big Mona Lisa. So where do I fit in this picture? And I also come from a military background, so I understand what Bobby was talking about. Once you figure out your role, man, it empowers you in a way that you can't teach.
That's right. And Masako, I know you have another question to ask, but I'll probably will end with this one. Your people is the one that carries your knowledge, and AI will develop these knowledge for the next generation of workers.
Absolutely.
So the workforce is shifting. So when we're talking about onboarding, this onboarding is going to be heavily managed by an AI with lots of knowledge management, KMS system, then LMS system, things of that nature. So I just want to articulate that, because when you onboard people, you got to focus on how do you onboard in the future. Not the same way, not, give them a bunch of papers and have them read it. That onboarding starts 2-3 years before that person that leaves, and now you have to onboard somebody else. And there's a lengthy process there. So we have to think about onboarding completely differently. What do you, any next question, Masako?
Only good night.
Only good night.
Not a question, it's more of a statement. This has been a ray of sunshine. Application of knowledge is extremely powerful.
Right.
And those that believe they can change the world do change the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we're coming up with the next episode, which will be knowledge management, large language model. So when we talk about large language model, if you're listening today and if you thought it was technical, it's going to get far more technical, right? But we'll try to keep it in story basis, right? This conversation was fun because you can articulate a lot of movies in it. Large language models are not old enough to have movies made about large language model. But we'll try to entertain it as much as possible. But I think the next conversation is going to be very great. It's about KMs, knowledge management system, LLMs, how they're going to interact with it. It's going to be a very technical but entertaining one, because that's the future we're moving into. And I want to capture people's attention on these topics while they're small, so they can grow with that, right? Not be surprised by a mature system like LLM all of a sudden is talking to them like, wait, how did they mature so fast?
Right.
So yes, this conversation has been a ray of sunshine for me, because you guys, right? You guys are asking me, challenging me with the questions. So kind of have to open my mind up and to reflect on this people side of things, because that's the hard one to do and easy one to forget, right? Because technology brings money, people takes the money, right? So I understand the whole dynamic of how much the people cost, right? But at the same time, that's the easy one to forget. So let's reflect back on that, focus on people, focus on process, and let the people fix that process, right? So departing thought, Bobby, and then Dwayne.
Why my kids didn't love me like that? That's what I want to know. Absolutely. I really appreciate just the conversation. It's really important that we, always stay at the forefront and don't be afraid to learn new things. Remember, micro learning is available, and it's available for everyone. So when you're doom scrolling, I'm not even telling you don't doom scroll. Change what you're scrolling, right? So I think as we move forward, next week will be exciting. As always, we try to take big problems and break it down into small bite-sized pieces. So thank you again, and I look forward to next week.
Good deal. I'm just to chime in too. Yeah, I think platforms and conversations like this are needed. We're, like you said, we're at a time that not only technology is changing, the world is changing. Like, I think in a matter of 5 years' time, things are going to look completely different than what it looks like now. And it's going to take platforms and conversations like this to kind of break down some of these complex topics and get people to understand that, hey, don't be afraid. You can embrace these changes and then use it to your benefit. So, this is great. Thanks for having me.
Ro, you want to say anything?
Yeah, Ro, what you got for us? So Royal doesn't know, but she'll be watching this one day when she's really, really old. And she's like, oh my God, I remember this. So see you guys next week. Thank you all for listening in. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. All right, Masako.